Hello, welcome back, part 3. So, I found out that evidently I can't record a screencast while I'm rendering a previous screencast because I've already done part 3 once, but I was rendering part 2 and it didn't save. So, we're going to do this over, part 3. Even though you didn't see it, I know I did it. Anyhow, on a positive note, when I uploaded part 2 to YouTube, I had a message that said, congratulations, you can now upload videos longer than 15 minutes. So maybe this will be our last video. I don't know. Yeah, so maybe we'll try to finish up all our JavaScript in this video and see how long it goes, and then make one more video to do our PHP, and we'll be done. So let's continue on with our error checking. So we did the name field. Let's do our email field. So for the email, we're going to use the not operator, and we're going to use jQuery's matching function. So we'll say if the email doesn't match this regular expression I'm going to paste in, then we'll return an error message. So if not our variable email dot match, which is the jQuery function, open parentheses, and let me just paste in this regular expression here, and close off our parentheses, and let's open our opening brace, a couple lines, our closing brace. Let's add a message here of, let's see, valid is going to be, we're going to add this message to what is there, so it would be plus equals opening paragraph tag and your email plus required. Alright, yeah, plus our closing paragraph tag, close that off, parentheses, and semicolon. So if their email does not match this regular expression, which is going to be any combination of characters, letters, underscore, period, hyphens, before the @ sign, same thing after the @ sign, and then all of the 2 and 4 character top level domains. And that gets all the top level domains except museum, and I'm not really worried about museum. So let's see what's next. We got to make sure somebody gave us a message. So if our message variable is equal to blank or the pipe symbol, which is or if, let's say, message is dot length is, let's say, less than or equal to 5 characters, we'll give another error message. So let's open our brace, closing brace, and let's add a message to our valid variable, plus equal, and paragraph. Let's see, a message, single quote, plus required, plus our closing tag, and semicolon. So those 3 fields, which we're going to send to the server, have been validated. So if names blank or less than 2, we're going to tell them that their name's required. If the email doesn't match a valid email, we're going to tell them their email is required. If the message is blank or less than 5 characters, then we're going to tell them that they need to give us a message. So now let's get our spam filter in here. So if our honeypot variable is not equal to http colon forward slash, that's period, forward slash, then we're going to add an error message of valid is going to be plus equal to, let's see, paragraph tag. Close the paragraph tag. Let's see, let's say spam. Oops, S-P-A-M. Spam bots are not allowed. And close the paragraph tag. Alright, so let's go take a look at this. Let's save this real quick. Save, and let's jump over to the source code of our form. Take a look at these two hidden fields. So we're not going to ask the user to put anything in these. We don't want them to. We're using this to kind of filter out between human users and spam bots. So for our honeypot field, we're going to set the value of http://, and that shouldn't change because the user's not going to see it. And this actually came from my buddy Lewis, and he's been exactly correct. This type of thing is just so enticing to the spam bots when they see a field for a URL. They typically want to stick a URL in there, and so we're going to check to make sure that there's nothing in there other than our bait here asking for a URL that we really don't want. And then in our next one that we're going to set up, our human check, it's got a value of nothing. And so these spam bots like to fill in all the fields on a form, and so we don't want anything in this field. We just want to check to see if they've done that. If they have, then it's likely that either somebody, a malicious user, is trying to do something, or a spam bot is, trying to spam you. So anyway, so let's validate that field as well. If let's see, what was that called? That's called human check. If human check is not equal to blank, which if it's not empty, then we're going to add a message to our valid variable of paragraph. A human user plus required. A required variable, which here is stored, is required. So plus our closing paragraph tag and our semicolon. So now all of our validation rules we've set up. So let's show the user when they've made an error, and to do that we're going to check the condition of our valid variable. And so we remember when we initialize this variable we set it equal to nothing. So if our valid variable is not equal to blank or nothing, then we're going to show our error messages. And to do that we're going to say jQuery form pound response. We want to remove any class that div has, and we're going to add a class of error. We're going to go look at the CSS for that in just a minute. And then let's just keep this from getting too long. We'll just make a break here. We want to chain the HTML function to it. We're going to stick some HTML in there, which is going to be, let's make this bold, so strong, and then let's put our message in there. So please, what we're going to say, please correct the errors below. Yeah. And close off our strong tag, and then we're going to stick our errors in there. So plus our valid variable, and then we need to show the response div because we hit it at the very beginning. So let's fade it in, fast, and that should get it. Yeah. So let's go take a look real quick here let's save this file. Save. And let's take a look at our CSS. So our error class is just, we're going to change the color of the background of that div to a reddish color. We're going to add a error image and set it up. No repeat. We want it 5 pixels from the left and 10 pixels from the top. And so let's take a look here at what the div looks like. This is the div right here on line 41. So we've just got some text color, a border, a width, and a margin, and all that jazz. So it doesn't have any background styling or any images placed in it. And that's why we add this class to it. So I think we're set up here. We should be able to test to see what happens. We've saved it, so let's go take a look. Let's refresh this. Alright, there it sits. Well, why isn't our form hidden? Okay, so I accidentally put a errant single quote in here. We need to get rid of that. Okay, we'll delete that, resave the file. Alright, now we should be able to check it out. Alright, we'll refresh the page. And it's gone. So, what happens now when we try to submit the form with nothing in it? Hey, look at that. We've applied our error class, which appends our image, please correct errors below, and our messages. So we're good to go. Now, what we got to do? Well, if the valid isn't empty, then we gave them the error. So if it is empty, then we should be able to submit our form. So let's say otherwise, else, then we'll say jQuery form pound response dot remove class, so that it removes any class, any previous class, and then we'll add a class of processing to it, and then we're going to add some HTML, and we're just going to put a simple processing in there. 1, 2, 3, yeah, processing, and then we need to fade the div in. Fade it in fast. Yeah. And then what? Well, we need to serialize the form so we can send the data to the server. So let's create a variable called form data, and we'll make that equal to jQuery form dot serialize, and that'll create a string of key value pairs to send to the server with our form fields. And then we'll call a function that we've not defined yet, but we're going to. That's going to be called submit form, and we'll pass to it our form data variable that we just created, which holds all the form information. So let's save that. Go take a quick look over here at the style sheet so we can see about this processing class, which is the same as our error class. We're just changing the background color to a tannish color. We're going to add a GIF image that is a loader type image and position it. That's all there is to that. So let's check it out and see what happens. We'll refresh the page. Alright, we'll try to submit with nothing in the fields. Have an error, so let's put some stuff in there. Worm Racer 08, and my email is something@something.com, and hello, your form is really cool. Yay. Alright, let's see what happens, and let's submit it. and nothing happens. Alright, so I have an error. I misspelled up here our variable valid. We need to fix that. So let's see, VALID. Oops, 2 D's. Okay, valid. Now, we'll save it, and we should get a green message now. Let's delete all this. Let's see here. Okay, so submit. Oh, we need to refresh the page. Refresh the page. Okay, let's try to submit it. We need to put a message. Okay. Hello. Your form is cool, but you're making too many mistakes. Alright, so submit. Look, we get to processing. We've added a class. Great, but nothing's going to happen because we haven't defined our submit form function. So let's refresh that. But it's working. So let's get back in here to Dreamweaver. Finish up our jQuery. Alright, so we're done here. We need to define our submit form function. So we'll jump outside of our document.ready because it's not going to be called. This function is not going to be called unless the document's already been loaded. So let's create our function. Function submit form, and pass to it our form data variable or argument. Open the parentheses, skip a couple lines, close the parentheses, and we'll just tack on a semicolon just for fun. We don't really need it. Alright, so now we're going to create our AJAX request. So we say jQuery.ajax, open parentheses, opening bracket, and we skip down a few lines, closing bracket, closing parentheses, and a semicolon. Now we can set up some rules within our AJAX function here. So let me just move these braces around. I hate the way Dreamweaver indents. So the first one we're going to define is our type, which if this isn't defined, it'll default to whatever the method attribute in your form is. So we're going to say post, comma, URL. This is where we want the form to be submitted to. So we're going to create later a PHP script called feedback.php, comma. Let's see, our data rule is going to be the data we're passing in, which is a variable called form data, comma. Our data type, what we're expecting back from the server. And in our case, we're going to use JSON, or JSON, however you want to say it, which stands for JavaScript Object Notation. So let's see here, we need a comma. Post requests by nature are not cached, but for good measure, we're going to stick that in there so that the browser does not cache it. We'll make this FALS false. Our timeout, should something go awry and our request isn't received by the server, or something happens, we don't want the form to just sit there forever and not do anything. We want to be able to show an error message. So let's time this thing out at, say, 7,000 milliseconds. 1, 2, 3, which would be 7 seconds. And then we have our success, which, what do we want to happen when the AJAX request has been successful? Now, that doesn't necessarily as straightforward as it sounds. Even if something bad happens on the server, as long as the request was made and the browser receives a 200 response, it's going to be considered a success. So this will always run as long as the server responded. So in our case, we're going to use an anonymous function and it gets past our data rule right here, this data rule, which in this case is going to be the form data. So it gets past this data rule. We need an opening brace, skip a couple lines, a closing brace, let's tab this over, and then inside of it, what are we going to do? Well, we're going to say jQuery form pound response, form pound response. We want to remove any class that might already be on this div, and then we're going to add a class of what? Well, hopefully it's going to be success, but we're going to look at what is returned from the server so we can distinguish whether it was a real success or there was an error. So we're going to say data, which is the variable we pass to it, dot error, and this is something we're going to be sending back from PHP. If this value of error is explicitly, which is 3 equal signs, which means if this variable matches the value as well as the variable type, whether it's a boolean, a string, whatever, if it is true, then what? Well, we're going to use a ternary operator of question mark that says error colon success. Oops, single quote. And what this says is, if the the information that we're sending back with the name of error, if it's explicitly true, explicitly equal to true in matching in data type and value, then if it's error, we're going to do something. Otherwise, if it's success, we're going to do something else. So what is that? Well, let's skip a line down here. We'll get tabbed over here. So let's say then HTML, we're going to add some HTML to the div, and it's going to be data.message, which is another piece of information we're going to send back from the server. Then we're going to fade that in, and we'll make it fast. Right? Okay, great. So this probably doesn't make a lot of sense right now, but you'll see it'll come together when we get our PHP script. We're going to send back JavaScript object that contains both an error and a value and a message and a value, and we're going to evaluate those here and see what they say to determine whether or not we're going to create a success or an error. So then the next thing we got to do here is, let's see here, let's skip back over to, let's tab over a little bit, and let's create another statement here that says if, okay, our $, which is jQuery, if our form pound response, let's see, has a class of success. So what are we doing here? Well, if it has this, let's see, we're going to evaluate this inner expression. So if this expression here is true, if our response div has a class of success, then we're going to, we don't want the success message to just sit there forever after they submitted the form, so we're going to make it fade out over time. So we're going to use JavaScript set timeout function. So timeout, set timeout on, and we need to enclose this entire thing in double quotes. So let's see here, jQuery, single quote, form pound response, close the quote out, dot fade out. We're going to do it fast, and then close off our double quotes, a comma, and the time we want it to fade out. So let's say 5,000 milliseconds, which would be 5 seconds. There we go. Alright, so let's fix this error on line 62 here. We're missing a parenthesis. So we got this parenthesis, but then we have a closing one here. We need to have this all enclosed in parentheses, so that'll fix that. Let's save the file. Save. I should have fixed it. Anyway, so let's move this brace back over here because this is the closing brace for our success callback. So if our form has if our data sent back is error or success, we're going to put that message into the div depending on what it is. And then if the form has a class of success, after 5 seconds we're going to remove the div from the form. So let's put a comma here and let's set up our next rule, which is going to be our error. What happens in the case of an error? Again, it uses an anonymous function and it is passed 3 arguments, and those arguments are going to be XML H, oops, that's an S, XML HTTP request, text status, and error thrown. And this comes from, you can look this up on jQuery's API docs, but this is what is passed to this anonymous function. We're only going to be worried about the text status and the error thrown. We're not going to worry about the request object. It doesn't matter. So let's open our brace, a couple lines, close our brace, get back inside of here, and do something. So in the event of an error, we're going to say jQuery form pound response. Form pound response. We're going to remove any class that the div already has. Then we're going to add a class of error. Seen this before. I already know what's going on. So then next, let's stick some HTML in here. So let's skip a line. Come down here and .html, and let's put some HTML in there. So let's an opening tag, opening paragraph tag, and let's say there was, and just make this part bold, a strong, let's see, we'll put a space in there and then close that off. There was a strong plus our error thrown. Yeah, error thrown, which is this variable right here. So whatever error gets thrown, whether it was a timeout or a parse error or something like that, it's going to say there was a whatever error. Alright, plus let's see here, some more HTML. So let's skip down here. Close off our strong tag. Yeah. And then there was a whatever error due to a, let's open a strong tag. I'm going to let them know what caused the error. Alright, let's go over and get rid of this blank space. We don't need this here. Alright. Okay, plus our text status. Alright, plus, skipping our line, some more HTML, which we're going to close off our strong tag and condition, period. Close our parenthesis tag, or our paragraph tag, close that off, close our parentheses, and then fade this in fast. So what's this say? It says if there's an error, we're going to add the class of error. We're going to tell them that there was a error thrown, whatever the error may be, due to whatever caused the error. So let's save that. Save. Alright. And let's see, what's next? Well, we have one more rule we can set up on. We want to reset the form after it's been submitted, whether it was an error or a success. It doesn't matter. We want to do that anyway. So we need a comma here, comma, and then our complete rule, complete, which uses an anonymous function, and passed to it is two arguments that we're not going to use, but I'm going to stick them in there to show you. So XML HTTP request and status. Opening brace, skip the lines, close the brace, and what we're going to do in here? Well, we're going to say jQuery form, and then our first form dot reset, and that'll clear our form for us. Let's save that. Everything's good. So let's go test it, see what happens. We should be good to go. Let's refresh our form. Alright, let's get rid of this and see if our error messages are working correctly. Alright, your name is required, so let's put my name in there. Aaron. Oh, I don't have 3 A's in my name. Alright, now let's see what happens. Submit. There was an undefined error due to a error condition. So it looks like we need some spaces in here. Let's go and fix that real quick. So there was, and let's put a space, and due to a. Alright, let's save that and see what happens now. Refresh. But you see our form reset. Alright, there's our errors. Let's see, Aaron at something.com, and here's my message. Submit. There was an undefined error due to a error condition, which should be and, but. Alright, so in our next video, in our last video, we'll write our PHP script and finish everything up. Stay tuned.